Back to another video, and today we got our week 5 college football top 25 rankings, and we're doing these videos every single Tuesday, so go down if you're not already, subscribe to the channel. We also do NFL every single Wednesday. We do college basketball, NBA, and MLB content every single week as well. So if any of that interests you, make sure you go down, subscribe, hit the noties. But we got a lot to talk about this week. First of all, a bunch of stuff to talk about from last week. Indiana picks up a huge win over Illinois. Texas Tech gets a huge win over Utah. We got to talk about a little bit of the opinions and feelings I have on the top teams in the country, as well as this is probably the best week of college football we have had and will get this season. I mean, I think it's pretty hard to say that there will be a week that beats this. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe not, but we got Oregon, Penn State, Georgia, Alabama, Ole Miss, LSU, so many other great games as well, so we're going to make our predictions for that as well. But let's go ahead and get right in to our number 25 team, and we do have Utah. People aren't going to like this. Teams I considered, TCU, I thought about BYU as well. Both those teams just don't really have much going on the resume. I think if TCU beats Arizona State this week, then I will have to rank TCU. But honestly, I don't love a lot of these teams on the outside right now. I thought about Mississippi State. I kind of want to wait and see with them. They're playing Tennessee, so we'll see how they look. I thought about putting South Florida back in, but then again, I wasn't really sure about that. I also thought about ranking Auburn, but I don't want to move Auburn up based off their loss. I know they maybe should have beat Oklahoma. It was pretty close. A little bit of a ref thing there. We'll talk about that when we get to Oklahoma. But I figured I'd just give Utah one last chance. I've done this with a lot of teams. I did it with Notre Dame. I did it with South Carolina, some Florida as well. The AP poll drops them out. I give them one more chance. So that's what I'm doing with Utah here. They go out and lose to Texas Tech. And this was a game that I thought Utah would really had the advantage in the trenches on the offense and defensive line. That just wasn't the case. They really just got handled by Texas Tech. That's really the whole story there. Texas Tech just looks like a ridiculous team. Probably the best team in the Big 12 at this point. I thought Utah would win. I thought Utah had the toughest place to play, the best home field advantage in the conference, and Texas Tech just went in there and handled them pretty easily. So Utah is going to fall a lot, but I'm going to keep them in at number 25. This week they're playing on the road against West Virginia. I think they have a nice bounce-back game here. I still believe in Devin Dampier. I still believe in Kyle Whittingham. I still do think this is one of the best teams in the Big 12, but that was a pretty bad loss. So I drop them down 10 spots. Number 24, Illinois. Again, people may not like this, that they're being ranked, but honestly, they were ranked 10 last week. I know they got absolutely blown out. But can I really drop them down like 16 spots from one loss? I guess you could. I mean, they lost to Indiana 63-10. This was a game I thought Illinois would win. Going in, I saw Indiana was like I forget if it was 5.5 or 6.5 point favorite. I was like, that doesn't seem right. I picked Illinois to win outright, and that just Indiana wins by 53 points. Literally were doing anything they wanted with Illinois. Fernando Mendoza barely incompleted a pass. He had 5 touchdowns. Indiana was running the ball all over them. It was just an absolute manhandling, to say the least. I mean, Illinois had a total of 2 rushing yards as a team in this game. Indiana had 312. I think this is kind of a mix of Indiana's better than we thought and Illinois is worse than we thought. So I do think Illinois still is an interesting team this season. Luke Altmaier, we had a lot of those guys on defense come back, and we were kind of excited about that going into the season. Looks like we were a little too high on Illinois. A top 10 team just based off of returning production, even when they weren't all that amazing last year. I mean, they were good. Don't get me wrong. I think, the expectations were set a little too high for Illinois. I think this kind of range of the rankings is more where they stand. This week they got a home game against USC, a huge bounce-back spot for them. We'll see what happens. I think they could win this game very well. USC is actually favored by 6.5. That seems kind of crazy. Maybe Illinois is just not good. That's definitely a possibility. USC's offense looks really good. We'll talk about USC in a little bit. I'm back and forth on this one. I'm going to take USC just because I don't know if I can pick Illinois to win as of right now with the way they looked against Indiana. Could they win this game against USC for sure? I still believe in Luke Altmaier. Still think he's a good quarterback. And I do think this team has a lot of veteran leadership and a lot of experience, which could help them against USC. We'll talk about USC, though. Their offense looks really good, and the defense looks much better than it has in the past for USC. We're going to kind of go into that. Number 23 is going to be USC, and like I said, I think they're going to go into Illinois and win. I think Jake Mayava, I think that's how you say his name, the quarterback, he's been really solid for USC. You can look at their games. I mean, their lowest scoring, they haven't scored less than 30 points. I don't know if that's going to change. The fact that Indiana put up 63 against this Illinois defense, I think USC could for sure put up 30 points. And honestly, I'm kind of worried if Illinois can keep up with that. Now, if Illinois can slow down this offense, I don't think they can shut it down, but if they can slow down this offense, that would be good for Illinois' chances. If they can actually get the run game going, then, maybe they have something here. I've heard a lot of things about this Lincoln Riley team, that USC's defense is much better. They did just give up 31 to Michigan State. I know MSU's not that bad of a team, but, not a great game against Purdue. They did win by 16. It was on the road, but Purdue's not very good. No, I'm not trying to take away from USC. I think their offense is really solid, and I think they are deserving of a top 25 spot at this point. But look at this 4-game stretch they got coming up. At Illinois, home against Michigan, at Notre Dame, at Nebraska. I mean, there's a real chance they lose all 4 of those games. Will they? I don't know. I think they'll beat Illinois, and I think they will beat Nebraska. I mean, if you're USC and you go 2-2 in that stretch, I think you take that. Obviously, you would want more because that kind of limits them for their playoff hopes. But I'm going to trust Lincoln Riley to go into Illinois. I like what his offense is doing. They're actually seem a little bit more dynamic this season, so I'm going to take them to beat Illinois. Welcome to the top 25 USC. Notre Dame picks up their first win of the season. And I actually thought about dropping them even lower. I wasn't going to drop them out of the top 25. I think they're still deserving to be ranked. You look at their 2 losses. One was on the road to Miami, who looks absolutely phenomenal, and the other one was a 1-point loss where they maybe should have won that game. There was a lot of things that didn't go their way in those last couple minutes, and they end up losing by 1. Those are 2 top 10 teams, and they've lost to them by a combined 4 points. That's not all that, I don't have too much concern there. Obviously, you'd want to win that A&M game. That was kind of a must-win game because now, even if they win out, they're in kind of a tough spot. USC could be a good win for them, though. This Arkansas win, if they get it, would be solid. Arkansas's quarterback, I think his name's Talon Green, I want to say. That might be wrong. Don't quote me on that, but it's something along those lines. He's really good. He has 1,200 passing yards on the season, almost 400 rushing yards. He's just a big play waiting to happen. He's a really good playmaker. I like him. So I think he will actually keep them in this game. That is Arkansas. But I do think Notre Dame, they know what they need to do. They have to win out. If they lose any of these games, they're not making the playoffs. And even at 10-2, they may not make the playoffs still. Kind of concerning, this defense against Purdue, giving up 30 points to Purdue. I don't love that. There was a weird rain delay, so maybe you could blame it on that, but I don't know. They gave up 23 points to Purdue in the first half. That's typically not something you're going to be excited about, but I do think Notre Dame goes into Arkansas, gets the win, although I think it's going to be very close. They're only 3.5-point favorites, so I do actually have them covering, but I think Arkansas is going to hang around in this one, and it's going to get a little uncomfortable for Notre Dame. I have Arizona State still ranked. I'm kind of surprised the AP poll doesn't have them ranked. I don't really know why TCU and BYU are getting the edge over them. Maybe it's just because ASU has the loss. But Mississippi State's still undefeated. They look like a solid team. We'll see. Like I said, I thought about ranking them. I kind of want to wait and see with them just because, we'll see how they play against Tennessee. They do get their Tennessee game at home. So I think that could be interesting, but again, I kind of want to see with Mississippi State. With Arizona State, though, they get a huge win on the road against Baylor. This is a Baylor team I was very high on coming into the season. I just liked a lot of the production they were bringing back. And I just still do think Baylor could be a solid team this season. Maybe not, Big 12 contender. But Arizona State goes out there, runs for almost 200 yards as a team. And Sam Leavitt and Jordan Tyson look very solid in this game. Big win on the road for them. They moved to 3-1, and now they got a game against TCU where I actually do think they win. TCU's ranked inside the top 25 in the AP poll. Arizona State's 2.5-point favorites. I got them covering. I think Arizona State is the better team, more talented than TCU. I think they win, and I think at that point the AP poll's got to rank them. But look at the stretch. I mean, at Baylor you can throw in there. That 4-game stretch right there, TCU at Utah, Texas Tech, that is a brutal. Arizona State's got a really tough schedule here in the Big 12. They're playing like all the top dogs. So we'll see. They definitely, I mean, if they can go out and run the table, which it's going to be tough to do with this schedule, but they're 11-1. They're going to have like a couple of ranked wins there. And Utah, Baylor, Iowa State, all on the road. I mean, it's going to be tough for Arizona State. We'll see. I think they have the talent to do it, though. Number 20, I'm going to have Missouri. And shout out to Missouri. They go out and beat South Carolina. South Carolina looks like nothing. They look done. It was obviously a miss here by me, by the AP voters, by pretty much everyone. They were getting ranked as a top 10 team constantly. I think I had them in the top 10 at one point just because of Lenore Sellers. Shamar Stewart comes back. Yeah, that's not the case anymore. South Carolina just looks like, I mean, they just look like nothing in reality. I don't know what's going on with South Carolina. I actually couldn't tell you. I'm assuming the team is just not good because Lenore Sellers, he was the piece that they were relying on. He was the guy that, maybe people were saying could maybe get in the Heisman conversations. He doesn't look right, and if he's not looking right, then this team is not going to do anything. They couldn't run the ball against Missouri. Shout out to Bo Pribula. He looks like one of the better quarterbacks in the SEC, so I like that for Missouri's chances. They're moving up 6 spots. Good for them. I think against UMass, they go out and show out once again. I think Missouri is looking really strong, and I think they could be kind of promising. It's going to be a tough schedule, but every schedule is going to be tough in the SEC. Number 19 is going to be Vanderbilt, another SEC team. They go out and beat Georgia State 70-21. Little revenge game for them because Georgia State, believe it or not, did beat them last year. A couple games before they end up beating Alabama. But now they're looking at 4-0. They got a big road win against South Carolina, who Missouri kind of struggled with, so I'm going to have Vandy ahead of Missouri just based off of that. They have the common opponent, and Vandy had it on the road and looked better. Diego Pavia looks like a really solid quarterback, and I like what this Vandy team is doing. This is back-to-back years where they're going to make a bowl game, I'm assuming. Vandy looks like a strong, really solid team, and I'm excited to see what they do. Will they be able to beat Alabama again? Probably not with the way Alabama looks, and it's on the road. And you look at the rest of the schedule, it's very tough. It is. But I think Vandy could make some chaos in the SEC. I think they could potentially get some upsets here. I like what they're building. I think they go out and beat Utah State here pretty easily. I think Vandy moves to 5-0. Georgia Tech at number 18. They're just going to kind of stay put where they're at. Haynes King, we gave him a lot of praise last week because obviously they beat Clemson. Now that Clemson win doesn't look all that great. They do have that road win against Colorado. I'm not too sure how excited we are about Colorado this season. So I don't know if that's all that good of a win. But Georgia Tech really just controls their own destiny. Besides the Georgia game, I mean, there's a chance they go into that Georgia game at 11-0. This schedule is very easy. I don't know if I see the hardest games. Probably NC State, maybe. I mean, I don't even know what it would be. Maybe Syracuse. I don't know. Georgia Tech looks like they're in for a really good chance to make the ACC championship game, which is crazy because you got Florida State and Miami, both in the top 10 of my rankings. And Georgia Tech, if they win out, they're going to be ahead of one of those teams because they do play each other next week. So we'll see what happens with Georgia Tech. Hopefully Haynes King can stay healthy. I'm kind of worried about that just because of the way he plays. And if he does go down, I think they still could win. But, that's obviously a huge loss if he does go down. So hopefully he stays healthy because if he does, it's going to be very interesting to see that Georgia Tech-Georgia game because, man, Georgia Tech almost beat them last year, and Georgia Tech's looking much better this year than last year. So we'll see. Against Wake Forest, I do think they win. I think it may be a little bit closer than the spread indicates. I got Wake Forest covering the spread. It is a road game. But yeah, I'm a little hesitant just because Clemson looks like absolutely nothing. They're 1-3. Number 17 is going to be Michigan. They move up 2 spots after getting a big win on the road against Nebraska, 30-27. And yeah, I'm excited about Bryce Underwood. I think he's going to be a really solid player. He's still working out some of the kinks and all that. He only threw 105 passing yards, but he didn't need to. Justice Haynes, man, that guy's a big play waiting to happen, and that worries me as an Ohio State fan because we saw what Michigan did with Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards that one year when they were just breaking off the big runs. Justice Haynes seems to do that every single game. We saw it against Oklahoma. We saw it against Nebraska now. Bryce Underwood also looks like a problem on the ground. That's going to be tough to game plan for any team that plays him. Michigan's looking promising. Again, pains me to say it as a Buckeye fan, but there's a good chance they make the playoffs. I could see them, I could really see them finishing 10-2. Maybe, could they run the table? They beat Ohio State 4 years in a row. We'll see. They got some tough teams. At USC's tough. Washington looks pretty solid. The MSU game on the road, that one kind of worries me a little bit. I don't know. I just have a bad feeling around that game for Michigan. And then, of course, Ohio State at the end of the schedule. But, yeah, Michigan's in a really good position right now. I think they have a bye this week, so no prediction here for the Wisconsin game. Number 16 is going to be Tennessee. They put up 56 points against UAB. And now I think the conversation is, does Tennessee have the best offense in the SEC? I think that's fair to say. Their least amount of points they put up is 41 to Georgia. Every other game, they've 45 to Syracuse, 72 to ETSU, 56 to UAB. This Joey Aguilar-led offense looks ridiculous. They're just having their way out there, and props to Josh Heupel because his offenses are always explosive, but this one looks, just like a different level of offense here. I think it's fair to say they have the best offense in the SEC. That worries me for Mississippi State's problem. And another thing that worries me, they say defense travels. They don't say that for offense. So could we see a little sneaky upset here? Maybe. I think Tennessee's too good, though, for me to pick against them. I'm going to pick Mississippi State to cover. Mississippi State's 4-0. They have the win over Arizona State, who's a team that I still have ranked and I still believe in. So I have Mississippi State covering. Road SEC game, we'll see. But I just can't ignore the fact Tennessee should have beat Georgia. They really should be 4-0 right now. So I don't think I'm going to predict them to lose, but Mississippi State has the chance to put themselves on the map with this one. This is one of those sneaky under-the-radar games. There's so many good games this week. Number 15 is going to be Iowa State. They're going to move down one coming out of the bye. Not really any reason, just a team behind them had to move ahead. It's really that simple. Iowa State still promising. Rocco Becht is a guy that I would trust in the clutch. He is one of the clutchest, most trustworthy quarterbacks, I would say, when it comes down to it. And Iowa State shows that they believe in him. They've had plenty of close games. It does worry me them playing these close games. It's kind of their play style, but that kind of worries me thinking they could get into a close game with the team and end up not closing it out. Could that be this Arizona game? Maybe. I think it's going to be yet again another close game, but I do think Iowa State holds on. I think Matt Campbell's a great coach. I think they win and move to 5-0. Number 14 is going to be Alabama. They're moving down 2 out of the bye. Again, same thing with Iowa State. Not so much that they did anything wrong, just teams behind them had to move ahead. Alabama on the bye didn't do anything. But they've got a chance here to put their names back on the map. Obviously, week 1, they got absolutely handled by Florida State, and that's not exaggeration of me saying that. Florida State did whatever they wanted with Alabama, and Alabama just looked unmotivated and really laid a stinker in that game. Can they bounce back with the win against Georgia? If they beat Georgia, then all of a sudden, the story about Kalen DeBoer, the narrative about Alabama is way different. Now, if they lose this game and start off the season 2-2, I think there's, Alabama fans are going to be panicking. I don't think I would, just because, 2 road games against 2 top 10 teams. I think it all depends on how Alabama looks in this game. I think they're going to look competitive. I think they're going to look like they're showing effort, which they didn't against Florida State. You look at the past 2 weeks against UL Monroe and Wisconsin. Ty Simpson has looked really good. He's getting hot. If I'm Georgia, I don't want to play Ty Simpson right now. You got Jeremy Bernard as well. Ryan Williams came back and showed out against Wisconsin. I believe their running back, Jam Miller, I think he's back for this game, so that's exciting for Alabama. Alabama's got a lot of momentum going into this. I think they could win. I wouldn't be surprised. Georgia's favored by 2.5. It's not a crazy big spread. I think it's going to be a close game, but ultimately I do think Georgia wins, them being the home team. I just love how they looked against Tennessee in that comeback win. I loved how Gunnar Stockton looked, and it shows that Georgia can win in a lot of different game scenarios. I'm going to say the same thing. Actually, I don't even know if I can. I was going to say if Alabama gets out to a hot start against Georgia, that's what I said for Tennessee. If Tennessee got out to a hot start against Georgia, then they would win. And that's exactly what Tennessee did, and Georgia ended up winning. I was about to say that for Alabama, but I don't even know if I can say that anymore. I think it could be a similar game to the Georgia-Tennessee game. I just trust Kirby Smart so much, and I do trust Gunnar Stockton at this point to be able to lead this team. It's just the way Georgia came back against Tennessee and just kept fighting. Really just makes me feel good about this pick. So I'm going to take Georgia at home here. I think the environment helps them out a ton as well. Number 13 is going to be Ole Miss. Ole Miss is exciting, man. They're not moving, but I'm excited about Ole Miss. They go out and blow out Tulane 45-10. I thought that game could be kind of close. Tulane's usually pretty good. Tulane had 104 yards passing. They couldn't do anything. Trinidad Shambles, 307 yards, 2 touchdowns. Austin Simmons looks like he's lost his job. Not to mention, he had 112 yards on the ground. He had 419 total yards in this game. Shout out to that dude. Austin Simmons goes down. Trinidad Shambles, it's not even that Austin Simmons did anything wrong. Because, Lane Kiffin was excited about that guy. He picked him to be the quarterback. And looking now, I don't think you can go away from Trinidad Shambles the way he's playing. So that's exciting. LSU's defense is going to have a tough task trying to contain this Ole Miss offense. You look at their points. They had a close game against Kentucky, close game against Arkansas. But these past 2 games with Trinidad Shambles, 40-plus points in both of them. So I'm excited about Ole Miss. They get this game at home. It's going to be a fun one, a big rivalry game here. Who's going to take it? I'm going to say LSU. I actually had Ole Miss yesterday, and then right before I hit record on this, I switched it to LSU. I just think LSU's defense is still legit. I know the Clemson win isn't great, which really tanks LSU's resume, but I still do believe in this LSU defense. I think they're one of the best in the country. I still believe in Garrett Nussmeier. I know he hasn't played good. He hasn't played all that great up until this point. I think he goes out there, goes into Ole Miss, and Ole Miss's offense struggles a little bit to get it going. I think LSU does enough to escape with the win, but I think Ole Miss could very much win this game. I think Ole Miss might be favored in this one as well. I wouldn't be shocked if Ole Miss won. Yeah, Ole Miss is 1.5-point favorite. I'm just going to trust LSU. I think they have enough. I think they have enough talent to get it done. but Ole Miss has plenty of talent as well, so I wouldn't be surprised if they got it done. Texas Tech moving up 4 spots. We got to talk about Texas Tech. They look like the best team in the Big 12. Plain as that. They look elite. I'm very excited about this Texas Tech team. Obviously, the story in the offseason was the amount of money they spent, the roster they brought in, so many new guys, so many new faces. It's looking like it's paid off, man. They go into Utah, which I believe is the toughest place to play in the Big 12, and win 34-10 in dominating fashion. Their quarterback was getting hit over and over again. Baron Morton goes out. He's injured because he keeps getting hit. And it doesn't matter. Texas Tech still goes out there and actually looked better when the backup Will Hammond comes in. Will Hammond, 13 for 16, 169 yards, 2 touchdowns. Baron Morton had more attempts, less yards, no touchdowns, and 2 picks. It's kind of the same thing with Ole Miss. When Austin Simmons went down, you get Trinidad Shambles in. He takes over the job. I think there's a real chance Will Hammond could have just taken the job right there for Texas Tech. He looked amazing. And Texas Tech didn't stop. They just kept airing it out, just kept attacking. They didn't get conservative. They kept going, and they go out and win this game in dominating fashion. I'm loving what I'm seeing from Texas Tech. Like I said, they've got to be the favorite in the Big 12 right now. If you say any other team, I think you're wrong. I think it's Texas Tech right now at this point. Number 11 is going to be Indiana, moving up 9 spots. You know, Indiana goes 11-1 last season, blows out every opponent except Ohio State. And I think they might be better this year than they were last year. Let me say that again. Indiana went 11-1 last year. And I think Indiana may be better this year than they were last year. Now, this year they have a much tougher schedule. They got Iowa on the road. That could be tricky. Oregon on the road. That's going to be brutal. At Penn State, again, going to be brutal. But the way they looked against Illinois, Fernando Mendoza threw 2 incompletions and had 5 touchdowns. Indiana outrushed Illinois. I believe it was 312-2. I mean, that's frankly just ridiculous what Indiana has done. What Kurt Cignetti has done. Can't give him enough praise. He goes out into the transfer portal, gets his guy Fernando Mendoza, similar to what he did with Curtis Rourke last season. He picked his guy. And look at now, Fernando Mendoza, again, may be better than Curtis Rourke. This team at Indiana may be better. They brought back some guys on defense. They look elite, man. I'm sorry. I think you could argue they should be top 10. I really do. Against Iowa, could be interesting. Indiana's 7.5-point favorite. I actually think Indiana covers. I don't think Iowa's all that good. They played a close game with Iowa State. I think you could argue Indiana's better than Iowa State. With the way Indiana looked against Illinois, I can't pick Iowa to cover the spread. Maybe if they shut down Indiana's offense, but it's hard for me to say that when they've put up basically 60 points the past 3 weeks, and they put up 63 against Illinois. A top 10 team at the time, by the way. Don't forget that. They beat the top 10 team by 53 points, so got to go Indiana here pretty clearly. They look like a real contender, actually, in the Big Ten, which is crazy. Texas at 10, they're going to continue to fall. I know they just won 55-0, and they actually looked pretty good on this one. But again, just a team behind them looks better. Now, Sam Houston State, they are an FCS team, but Arch Manning, 18 for 21, 309 yards, 3 touchdowns. That's a pretty good stat line, if you ask me. Ryan Wingo, they have all the talent there. The defense is still arguably, one of the best in the country. They still have all the playmakers on the outside. It's really just coming down to how good is Arch Manning, and I think that's going to be the question. We're going to get that answered, I believe, when they start SEC play. When they go into Gainesville to play the Gators next week, I think we're going to see exactly what we need to see with Arch Manning, because I can kind of give them the pass. They had a competitive game with Ohio State on the road. They end up losing, and it was Arch's first game ever. I think at this point, we'll really get to see what Texas really is against Florida. We'll see how they play in that one. I'm excited, but that is next week's game. So we're going to move on. Number 9 in the rankings is going to be Oklahoma, Texas's biggest rival. I have Oklahoma ahead of Texas right now. They're moving up to 9. Now, could you argue the refs helped out Oklahoma here for sure? They had the weird sideline thing where he pretends to get checked out. He doesn't. He ends up scoring a touchdown. Probably should have been a flag there. Auburn had some calls that were taken back that would have helped them out a lot. Yes, you can argue that, but at the end of the day, Oklahoma won the game. I think you can make, Auburn was a ranked team in the AP poll. You could probably make the argument Auburn still deserves to be ranked. I wouldn't be mad at that. But Oregon at this point, or not Oregon, Oklahoma at this point, 2 ranked wins in their first 4 games, and they've looked really good. John Mateer looks like a Heisman caliber quarterback. Now, the news that just broke a couple hours ago, John Mateer now has a broken hand, so he's going to be out a month. That's a huge blow. They have a bye week this week, so they have some time to figure it out. I think that's a perfect time to have a bye week. But, man, that's tough. Going into Red River in, 2 weeks with no John Mateer, it's going to be hard, man. I was so excited for that. That's a huge loss for Oklahoma, man. I'm so upset because Oklahoma was a team that we were like, okay, they're talented, but the schedule is not favorable. It's a really tough schedule. We'll see if Oklahoma can hold on. And then once they beat Auburn, I was thinking, well, now is it the schedule's hard, or is it just Oklahoma is going to be hard for all the teams that they're going to play? But now with no John Mateer, it really is an unfortunate situation. We'll see what happens. I'm hoping he can get back. But, yeah, like I said, the reports are he's going to miss a month, which does mean he's going to miss Red River. But, maybe he's back by that Ole Miss game. And if he is, Oklahoma could still be interesting. I think they could beat South Carolina without Mateer. We'll see how the backup looks, I guess, next week against Kent State. But, it is unfortunate. Number 8's going to be A&M. They're not moving. They had a bye this past week, so they're not moving at all. They're coming off that big road win against Notre Dame. And now they play Auburn, who's a team that's going to be angry. They probably think they should have won against Oklahoma. Maybe you could argue they should have. The refs didn't help them at all. Now, the question for A&M is this going to be an A&M team of the past where they get a big win, they get the hype up, they get high up in the rankings, and then they fall off the face of the planet. They disappear. Can they take care of business? I think they do. I love the playmakers. I love Marcel Reed. I love this A&M team. I think this is the year A&M gets over the hump, and I think they should make the playoffs. This is a pretty favorable SEC schedule, if you ask me. You got at LSU, at Missouri, could be tough, and then at Texas. But if you just win one of those 3 games, and I'm assuming they win all the other games. Now, Auburn is a tough game. But if you just win one of LSU, Missouri, Texas, go into the playoffs at 10-2, I think they would get in. I think A&M's in a great spot right now, but they got to take care of business against Auburn. I think they do. Number 7 is going to be FSU, Florida State, coming off a bye. Now they go into ACC play, and I'm kind of excited for this game. We haven't seen FSU play anyone of meaningful, any high status since Alabama, and they looked so good against Alabama, and that win is aging better and better as time goes on. Alabama looks better and better. But yeah, they got a road game against Virginia. I'm sensing a little bit of a trap game. They got Miami, who's ranked number 2 in the AP poll, by the way, the week after this, next week. So this Virginia game could be sneaky, could be a little bit of a trap game. FSU is only favored by 6.5. I think they cover. I think they win, but I do think it's going to be a close one. I think this is a very interesting spot to see what we're getting from FSU. Will they take care of business, or will they get upset? We'll see, but I have them winning here. Number 6, I have Penn State, staying where they're at 3-0, coming off the bye, and now the big game. They got to play Oregon. In my opinion, game of the week, a Big Ten championship rematch from last year. Penn State and Oregon in that Big Ten championship game. That was a phenomenal game. Penn State really had their will running the ball. They outran them by a whole lot of yards. Oregon ends up winning, though. That was a shootout last year. Crazy game. I don't think that's going to be the case this year. I think both these defenses are are really solid, and I think it's going to be a much different environment there. It's going to be the whiteout environment. So how will Dante Moore and the Ducks and Dan Lanning go into Happy Valley and handle that environment? We'll see. I'm very interested to see how Dante Moore starts out this game. I think that's going to be a big tell of what's going to happen in this game. I think he could start out slow, and I think if Penn State gets out to an early lead, it may be a little tough for Oregon to come back. Now, if Oregon gets out to an early lead, I actually worry more about Penn State coming back than I do Oregon coming back, because I just think Oregon has the big play upside with DeCorian Moore to kind of come back in this game. And I think their defense is so deep and so sound that I think they could get some stops, put together some stops, and mount a comeback. But if Oregon gets up in this game, I'm really worried about Penn State because they're going to want to run the ball, at least I'm assuming. They haven't looked all that special the first 3 weeks. Maybe they're just saving stuff for the Oregon game, which could very well be the case. But coming into the season, Penn State was, arguably the number one team. I actually don't remember. I might have had them ranked number one. Actually, no, I had Texas, but I'm ranked number 2 coming into the season. I've dropped them to 6 just because other teams have better wins at this point. But if they go out and beat Oregon, they're going to be right back up at potentially 2, 3 at worst, So Penn State, very interested to watch this game. I'm going to be watching this game, the whole thing. We're going to see what Penn State is really made of here. I think Oregon wins. I think I've seen more from Oregon. Maybe that's why I'm taking Oregon at this point. They've just looked better than Penn State has. But could Penn State go out, win this game in a whiteout environment? 100%. 100% they can win this game. I just am going to trust Oregon to get it done more than James Franklin. Because, I know people don't like to hear it. But it's the truth. The big games, Penn State doesn't show up. Will this year be different? This is kind of the year Penn State needs to be that top team. So will this year be different? We'll see. We'll see what James Franklin has here for Oregon. Andy Kotelnicki as well. Jim Knowles, I think, could be an issue for Dante Moore. We'll see what he throws out there. But I think Oregon wins. I think it could be like a last-second field goal here, game-winning drive for Oregon to win this game. Penn State could for sure win this game, though. I'm really back and forth on this one. LSU is going to move down 2 after winning 56-10. Kind of crazy, I know. But look at the resume. They beat Florida by 10 points at home when DJ Lagway threw 5 picks and they only score 13 points on offense. The Clemson went on the road. I know people are, you can say, well, Clemson was a top 10 team at the time. It's a road game at night. Dabo Swinney, all that talent on Clemson's roster. They have plenty of NFL players on that roster. You can argue that. But then again, Georgia Tech beat Clemson. Syracuse just blew Clemson out. I mean, Troy was beating Clemson at halftime. So how good is Clemson really? How good is that win really? You gotta knock it down a little bit. I think they have a massive opportunity to just get right back into that top 2, top 3. I had them at 2 for a while. Last week I had them at 3. Now I've got them at 5. They got a big chance here at Ole Miss. Now I know a lot of the other teams have big games as well. Penn State, Oregon, Georgia, Alabama. But if LSU goes out on the road to Ole Miss and wins this game in a convincing fashion, you could definitely make the argument LSU should be back up there. I do think they win. I'm going to trust the defense. I'm going to trust Garrett Nussmeier. The fact that he is experienced, he hasn't looked all that great up until this point, but I think he's going to go in there, do enough. I think LSU is going to figure it out. I think they're going to find a way to win this one on the road. Oregon 4-0, number 4 in the country. They go out against Oregon State in the Civil War and win 41-7. I thought it could be a little bit closer, but it just look at this Oregon team, man. I worry a little bit about the run defense. Northwestern had about 200 rushing yards against them. They only put up 14 points, but that's a lot of rushing yards. And when you're playing Penn State on the road, if you let Penn State run like that all over you, like how Northwestern did, Penn State's going to win this game. Dante Moore has a big task on his hands. We'll see how he adjust to this Jim Knowles defense. Jim Knowles is probably the best DC in the country. He's that good. Another thing I worry about is he runs his defense really susceptible to giving up big plays, which I think Oregon is going to capitalize here at some point with this offense. I think Oregon wins this game. I think it's going to be close, but it's game of the week here. 2 top 10 teams. It's going to be fun. We're going to get a real feel for both these teams because honestly, Penn State hasn't played anybody, and Oregon, you could argue, hasn't really played anybody as well. I know they've played Oklahoma State, Northwestern, those are Power 4 teams. Oregon State is a rival, so I guess you could argue a little bit more for Oregon. That's why I picked them, honestly, because we've just seen them look better against better teams. But we'll see. We'll see. It's going to be a fun one there in Happy Valley, the night game. Miami's going to move up to 3 for me. They beat Florida 26-7. And I feel like every week I just feel better and better about this Miami team. I mean, look at the defense, man. It's ridiculous how good this Miami team looks. They just look sound in every position. Last year they had Cam Ward. They were the high-flying, flashy, highlight reel type of offense. The defense wasn't anything. This year they look like a legitimate national champion contender. And yeah, they've got a big game there on the road against FSU. That's a huge game. The winner of that game is going to put themselves in prime position to go play for the ACC championship game and potentially win it, because we'll see what happens with Georgia Tech. I mean, the loser of that game may not make the ACC championship game, as crazy as it is to say, just because of Georgia Tech being there. We'll see what happens. Miami's, they're going to be on the bye. They've played some tough opponents already, so we'll see. I know Florida State has too. They played Alabama, so it's going to be a fun one there. Number 2 is going to be Georgia. They're going to stay put where they're at 3-0, coming off the bye. I think it's just the fact that they came back on the road in one of the hardest environments in the country against the Tennessee offense that I said if they got out to an early lead, which they did, I said Tennessee would win that game. I said if Tennessee gets out to the big early lead, Georgia's not going to be able to come back from this. And they fought all the way back, winning in overtime on the road. Now they're going to have to play Alabama. And they get the bye week to prepare. I know Bama did too. But at the end of the day, who do I trust more, Kirby Smart or Kalen DeBoer? I'm going to go Kirby Smart. And I just think, the fight Georgia showed in that Tennessee game, I think it's going to translate throughout the rest of the season. I think Alabama goes into Athens and does get handed their second loss. I think Georgia wins it. They want some revenge from last year. Alabama beat them. Could Kalen DeBoer do it a second year in a row? Maybe. Ty Simpson looks great. I wouldn't put it past him. I think it's going to be a close game. I think it's going to come down to the end once again. But I do think the Bulldogs go out and get their another great win. And then number 1 still going to be Ohio State. They're also coming off a bye. We got a lot of teams coming off a bye this week. And they've got a tough game here at Washington. Washington's undefeated. I like Washington. I think Washington is a really underrated team. I think they've got some excitement surrounding their program right now, which is exciting because Kalen DeBoer leaves, and you wonder where the program's going to go. But Washington has like a 20-plus game winning streak at home or something like that. Maybe it's like 18, 20, something around that range. They don't lose at home, and they haven't lost at home in years. Now they welcome the number 1 team, the defending champ Ohio State, who also has been absolutely ridiculous ever since they lost to Michigan last year. Obviously, Ohio State's the better team. Obviously, they're the more talented team. But I think Washington's going to put up a fight, man. I really do. If this was a night game, I'd genuinely be concerned that Ohio State could lose this game. I think Ohio State wins. I got them winning 31-23. I don't think it's going to be, a dominating win from Ohio State. I have Washington covering the spread. And I think Washington could really actually make this interesting. I'm going to trust Ohio State's talent. You look at the defense, they just reloaded under Matt Patricia and look like they haven't lost a step at all after all the guys they lost, which is ridiculous. I think there's a lot to be excited about in the running back room with Bo Jackson coming onto the scene there. They've got like 3 usable running backs and they still got Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate. I don't know how Washington's going to contain that, so honestly, if it does come down to it, I'm just going to trust Ohio State and the talent they have and the coaching they have to get it done. Also, coming out of the bye, they get some a little bit extra time to prepare, which I do like as an Ohio State fan. If this was just coming off, another plain old week, but they get the bye to prepare, I think they're going to win, but I think it could be closer than some may think. But that is going to do it for the Week 5 Top 25 rankings. Let me know what you think about my rankings. Let me know your rankings if you would like. Let me know what you agree, disagree down in the comments. Love to interact down there. I'll make sure to reply to them, as I always do. But that is going to do it. Like this video if you enjoyed. Subscribe. Notice if you're new. We do college football every Tuesday, NFL every Wednesday, MLB every week as well. The playoffs are just around the corner. And then college basketball and NBA. When those seasons start, we're doing those every week as well. So subscribe. Turn on the noties. But with all that being said, that is going to do it. Thank you so much for watching. And I will see you guys tomorrow with another NFL Weekly Picks video.